What's up? Juno here. It's been a while since I've made a video. And I've tried to make the video that I'm going to try again to make now, but there's been a lot of new information and new ways of looking at stuff and new things uncovered throughout this period of time that I've tried to shoot and reshoot this video here. And as I've brought up in other videos, I work in the entertainment industry. I've worked in everything from TV shows, reality TV, commercials, DVD release stuff, feature films, web series, you name it, a particular genre of video media, I've worked on it, web series, all sorts of things, from a plethora of different organizations, whether they be major movie studios to independent productions and everywhere in between, commercial companies, stuff like that. I've worked on everything. When it comes to post-production, editing, putting it together, stuff like that, I've worked on pretty much every genre out there in the amount of time that I've worked in the post-production field of the entertainment industry. And what I want to talk about here is this SOPA legislation. What a lot of people may not realize, especially since a lot of major news organizations, at least ones that you would see on network news and stuff like that, or cable news, they're not really covering it. And there's reason for that. And I'm not trying to sound conspiratorial here, but I'll get into the details of that here shortly. I have a lot of issues with it, and I'm sure a lot of people across the board have a lot of issues with it, because this could potentially, if it was to, say, proceed further and actually pass and be enforced, could really fuck up the internet. But I see a lot of problems with it, and the first thing that I see is, well, it's being spearheaded by organizations that really don't understand the digital age of things. Now, if you're in the United States and you've seen a movie or bought a movie, or if you've seen a movie trailer, you'll notice at the head of it you see like a rating, or you'll see the green screen that says, you know, this preview or this trailer is suitable for all audiences and stuff like that. So those things, and those are regulated by the MPAA, the Motion Picture Association of America, and most people think they're mostly in charge of rating films. And truth be told, that is the case. That is their primary function that most people can recognize. But something that many people may not recognize is they're also the leaders of trying to pass bills and get legislation passed to restrict the internet, to regulate or try to restrict cable and internet providers to basically kowtow to their things. And in my opinion, as someone who works in the industry, the movie studios and the regulation body, the MPAA, and the RIA to an extent as well, they kind of refused to adopt new technology. It scares them. And of course, a lot of times, I mean, things have changed due to the digital age and things, you know, being easily to be able to access. 5 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to use something like Netflix or rent a movie in iTunes or download and buy a movie in iTunes or something like that. But now you can, buy an Apple TV or a Roku box, or even some TVs have certain streaming services built into them now. That's where the thing is. It's all in one. And honestly, that's kind of why I've shied away from buying a Blu-ray player, because I see things and I prefer things in a digital medium, meaning there's no physical clutter. I have all my media backed up on multiple drives, so if a drive fails, I have my media backed up in another location. So I can just continue on going, copying it back over, replace the drive, whatever. But to movie studios, a lot of it is physical media sales. And that's what they bank on. But when people are trying to simplify things and have the power, I have my iPhone right here. I can download, encode, and put movies right here and have them in my pocket with me at all times. I've also got, my iPad, which has a nice big viewing screen to do that. It's amazing. And, the reliance on physical media, like DVDs and stuff like that, and Blu-rays, and to, I guess, an extreme less extent, VHSs. I mean, that's where they made the bulk of their money, because it was physical media and they could charge an arm and a leg for it. So, they're used to these high profits. And so they're trying to cut down on what they deem as pirating. Now, another thing is, a lot of these litigious organizations that team up with groups like the MPAA and the RIA and the European bodies that are similar to an extent, they are spearheaded by groups that will try and kind of come up with something that will be an excuse to force governments to restrict access to certain websites. And I'm talking specifically like torrent websites and peer-to-peer websites. And a lot in the past was used, and an example that was thrown out there was child pornography. Well, when a government hears, when a governing body hears or goes to a government and says, hey, these places are hotbeds for child pornography, then of course the country wants to figure out who the hell is distributing that. For the most part, at least let's talk in Western countries for the most part, civilized nations, they definitely probably want to go and try and track down and put an end to that. You see, the thing is, though, is a lot of mainstream trackers for torrents, a lot of the big ones like Pirate Bay and stuff like that. Now, I'm not going to deny that there may be pornography or child pornography on these websites, but they're not there, at least the website is not intentionally putting them there. It's contributed to by users, and maybe some user doesn't know the rules or is trying to be malicious or trying to get him in trouble. I mean, how many times have there been examples of movie studios and governing boards or bodies that rate films or whatever try to put out, bait files out there to try and catch people downloading it? I mean, it happens countless times. More on that in a minute, though. But so they'll use it, and a lot of the things that were used to throw in legislation were this potential risk of child pornography to get countries to block the websites, which I find to be bullshit, because a lot of the websites that I'm familiar with, they have strict no porn policies. Now, I use private trackers typically, or I try to as much as possible, because a lot of the time the material is better than on a free open website. But they have strict anti-porn. No matter what type of porn it is, none. It can't exist, otherwise you can get banned. And if you want access to good information and good media, you don't want to get banned from private trackers, because a lot of the time you have to be invited to them. And it's hard sometimes to get an invite. So, yeah, a lot of time their premise is completely false when they do it. So that goes to show you that they're out of touch. Now, still staying on the out of touch thing, if you really look at the people who are drawing up these laws or trying to draw up this legislation, a lot of them, especially looking at the age of those people who are actually in governing positions in this country, they're not the technological type. They don't necessarily understand how the internet works, and they don't understand necessarily the free exchange of ideas and information. Now, I'm not trying to sit here and promote pirating. I'm going to say it is a reality. People do it, and just because someone downloads something doesn't necessarily mean they're a criminal, and it shouldn't be criminalized like that. Not necessarily. I mean, if they're making a profit off it, then I could see a problem. I could see a reason to try and prosecute them because they're making a profit off someone else's work. I can understand that. But if it's someone who's doing it for personal use and not making any monetary gain off of it, you got to figure, I mean, at least if I was in a position of power, hey, at least they're wanting to see your stuff. Because if they don't want to see your stuff, they're not going to download it. They're not going to fucking care, and you're making even less money. Because a lot of people who download stuff illegally, especially if it's a shitty quality of something, they'll go out and buy the legit thing when it's available. So, to think that you're going to be losing out all this money, it's not necessarily the case. Now, I took a minute to actually pull up the last decade or so of box office sales in the, I believe it's the MPAA breakdown. So this is domestic for the United States. And looking at the numbers, from 2002 to 2011, the numbers have stayed pretty consistent, with one year being a little bit lower than others. But for the most part, it stayed at about $9.3 billion on an average in a 10-year span. That's pretty impressive, especially considering how much of a recession we've been in for quite a few years now, almost, 4 years now? And, for movie sales, especially since movie tickets are ridiculously expensive nowadays, that's not bad. But, I see this whole legislation and what the power that they want to do to basically track down other websites and turn them, take them down and everything. I see them not going about it the best way, and I view it as basically corporate trolling. And what I mean by that is look at YouTube as, I guess, a metaphor or example here. Say you make a video, and especially if you're a video contributor, especially if you're an atheist and have been making videos for a couple of years, you've probably had a video or some videos or many videos flagged for one reason or another, or maybe even had a false DMCA filed against you for someone who doesn't understand critique or criticism. This, in a way, by them being able to seize domains and shut down websites, this is like the ultimate unaccounted, flagging here. And it may not be for legit reasons. And I say that because recently I follow a website, especially on Twitter, called Torrent Freak, and it's a very good resource for information regarding especially this legislation that's passing through now and other things regarding stuff on the internet and peer-to-peer issues and technology and stuff like that, and it's interesting to follow. I would recommend checking them out on Twitter and checking out their website too. They have some fantastic articles on there. But recently it's been uncovered that some major movie studios are actually pushing for this legislation. All major movie studios are on board with this legislation, by the way. But some of them, and I'm going to name them here, as well as other branches that you may not expect, have been caught downloading torrents. That's right. Fox, Sony, NBC Universal, the Department of Homeland Security, members of the House, coming from their IP addresses, and from the RIAA have all been using peer-to-peer downloads. So, while they're going and trying to pass this legislation, they're being completely hypocritical that they're using these sources that are potentially, stealing profits from, people like me who work in the entertainment industry. It's bullshit because studios pay for movies up beforehand anyway. So if they're losing all this money, they're trying to recoup the production costs. They've already paid, by the time a movie's released, I've already gotten paid. I'm laughing all the way to the bank, so it's not hurting me in the slightest. But, I guess when it comes to profits, but even so, you still have, looking at the numbers, it doesn't make much sense that they're saying they're losing money when the numbers have stayed fairly consistent. At least, saying at right about $9 to $9.5 billion per year for the last decade. For consistency, especially when half that time has been a down economic time, or nearly half of it, that's pretty fucking impressive. But another problem I have with this potential legislation is they seem to be, I've looked at the list of the companies that support this thing, and it seems like there's no rhyme or reason to who they're including in it. A lot of them, of course, there's a lot of law firms and stuff that are trying to get on board with it and supporting it, and other governing bodies and stuff like that that are on board. But something that makes very little sense to me, because most of the coverage it's been getting has been talking about just how it's going to fuck up the internet, and I will agree with that sentiment. But a lot of the brands that are also signing on to it, companies that actually produce a tangible product, that type of piracy, like knockoffs and stuff, I think that's a separate thing. That's physical. You can't download a pair of knockoff Ugg boots. You can't download a fake Rolex. You can't download, a fake, Louis Vuitton purse. You have to actually go and physically purchase it, either purchasing it on an online website and having it shipped to you, or going to some store and buying the knockoff. Digital piracy, as they like to call it, downloading movies and music and stuff like that illegally, in their opinion, from certain websites, I don't think they should be classified the same, because while one's a digital file, one's an actual physical, tangible object. It's like, I don't download a DVD. I can download media and burn it to a DVD, but I'm not physically downloading a DVD. It's not going to just instantly, I hit download and the DVD's going to appear on my desk. No, it's not going to fucking happen like that. These aren't physical goods like that. I think something separate should be used for dealing with knockoff products and stuff like that. And good luck. Honestly, if they're trying to tackle Chinese and Russian websites that host pirated materials, in their research that is, what makes you think they're going to abide by this? And what makes you think this isn't going to piss them off even more if you try to go and seize domains that aren't within your boundaries? I don't fucking get it. Honestly, if I was in another country and if I ran a hosting company and there just happened to be a couple trackers on there, if you tried to go seize domains or seize the domain of my company, I'd be fucking pissed off at you. That's for damn sure. Because what gives you the right? You're out. You're trying to get your reach out where it doesn't belong and where it shouldn't be. The MPAA, the RIA, and the other European bodies that are on board with this bullshit. It's fucking ridiculous. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments or video response. I'd love to hear about it. There's more I could say, but I'm kind of limited in time, the time limit and stuff. So I'll try to be active in the comments, but I'd really like to know. And I may do a follow-up video when more information comes to light. I think this sums it up the best. Anyway, do your part. Blaspheme daily.